Welcome to Porchlight, a presentation of Porchlight VNA and Home Care, providing first-rate, highly personalized care to families and individuals in the Berkshires and also in the hill towns of Hampden and Hampshire counties, all in the comfort of their own home. And here in the Berkshires, we have to have a lot of options for seniors. Our population is aging. One of those choices is Devonshire Estates in Lenox. I'm very happy to welcome to the program Sean O'Neill, who is the community manager for Devonshire Estates, which actually has an office where Porchlight is located. So Sean,
Sure do.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. You came to Devonshire. You've been in the senior care, senior living world for a little while. So what brought you here to the Berkshires?
I started out as a hotel guy, which I did for a very long time. And that segued into a company I directed of renting out summer camp properties for groups when camp wasn't in session. The company I worked for happened to own 3 in the Berkshires, Mackinac, Winnetou, and Danby. So I'd spent a lot of time in the area and of course fell in love with it, as would anybody. And after that, I became executive director of an assisted living community in Concord, New Hampshire. And then I was out of the field for just a little bit, and I just kind of had the hunger for working with seniors again. And when I entered back into the industry with holiday retirement, they had sent me to Troy, New York, and I had always yearned to be back here in the Berkshires. So when the opportunity to manage Devonshire came up, I jumped on it. As hard as it was to leave that little slice of heaven they call Troy, I just find Lenox a lot preferable.
So looking at that, so you know the Berkshires pretty well through the camping. So you know
Pretty
South
good.
County,
Yep.
and of course here in Lenox, you know that's Southern Berkshire County. So you kind of know the area. And so Devonshire, how would you describe that community and the individuals who choose to go and live there?
We're an independent living community, and it's very important to make the distinction between independent and assisted. And a lot of people don't know the difference. We're an independent living community, whereas we provide the things that people have grown tired of doing for themselves that don't necessarily need. So in other words, we do the cooking for them. We provide the meals, which are very good, by the way. I was 160 pounds when I got there. We'll do the
What are you,
housekeeping.
162 now? Or
Yeah,
so?
something like
But you
that.
know, it's funny because I went to, there's a cook-off that you do.
That's right.
All the time.
Throwdown.
And so the throwdown, and so the holiday has a throwdown where all the different chefs
From our region.
and they go to different locations, and in that point, I tasted all of them, and so I can see how you've probably gained a few pounds.
Oh,
since
absolutely.
You came here to Devonshire.
Our chef Bobby Turner is one of the best.
Yeah.
So we're an independent living community. So whereas when it's time to sell the house, and you know you're in reasonable, healthy condition, certainly mobility is not an issue because there's all kinds of walkers and mobies and things to assist people. So we provide the meals, we provide the housekeeping, we'll provide the transportation to your doctor's appointments. You'll have your own apartment. We provide activities, entertainment, various outings to casinos and lunch groups and things like that. So it's really just a kind of new place to call home when you're looking to downsize. And you want maybe, or your children want, or you want someone to maybe just be there for a little more security. As my wife Michelle and I both live on the property, as do our co-managers, Ray and Kathy Moniz. So, you know, in the middle of the night, if you take a fall or if mom or dad takes a fall, they have pull cords that ring right to us. So all the family members don't have to drop what they're doing. We're there to go assist them and assess them and see what the situation is about.
More of a manageable, independent living, you know, because we talk about when people start to age, you want to make it easier. Typically, people often would move into a ranch, for instance, one-level living. So that's something that obviously in your apartments you provide that one level, and then with the meals. So you know, interesting that really it is an ability to ease things up a little bit, but still independent living.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to even carry the independence a little further, we also have 20 cottages that, as you just mentioned, are very much like a one-level ranch house.
I see, yeah.
Whereas they have their own garages and you know just desire to live even just a little more independently, with still the same sense of security as being in the community as a whole.
Yeah, it seems as though that model seems to be more prevalent. This idea that you have the two different sets of independent living, where you have the units out there with the garages, but then you have the all-encompassing location where the meals are, and also apartments in that. So that's kind of a
Right.
common model nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, the aging in place thing is so important, and our partnership with Porchlight, as a matter of fact, allows that to happen. One thing I think is a certainty is, if somebody goes into assisted living prematurely, they would tend to go downhill much faster. If people are in the situation where they can live independently longer, and at some time they may need assistance with their activities of daily living, medication management, may need assistance with a shower. That's what Porchlight is there for, and they have their office right with us in Devonshire.
Yeah, and it is a great point, because if you are in your home, your traditional home, Porchlight would go there to be able to keep you in that home for as long as possible. Now, place it in your scenario where it still is independent living. That is home. For these individuals.
Absolutely.
So it's just as if Porchlight is coming into your traditional home, except in an apartment or in one of the units.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the key and most operative word there is home, because that's exactly how we want our residents to feel like they are truly at home. And that they're part of a community. And Michelle and I and Ray and Kathy, we're equally part of that community. So there's this. You have a title of a manager, but it's not it's not this position where you sit behind a desk and wait for things to happen. It's a very proactive position with a very integrated system and with our residents. We become part of their lives, they become part of ours. And it's very much like that. And really, that's kind of what sets us apart. When people are shopping around for any type of senior living, we all pretty much have meals, we all have apartments, we all have transportation, we all have housekeeping. It's us that makes the difference. And places have big events and everything, but if you look back in your own life, it's not necessarily the New Year's Eve parties that you remember as you do the people that made you feel comfortable and secure and loved in your life. So the things that went on every day, as opposed to the big events. Now, don't get me wrong, we have the big events too.
You have those as well. Tell me about, as far as the makeup of who lives at Devonshire State, in the sense that, of course, we know the Berkshires is a place where people like to retire. Is there sort of tracking as to where people not only are coming from last, but how they were introduced to the Berkshires? Because I think that's very interesting information. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitors Bureau would love to have information like that as well, to help them strategize in their way as well. But being a Berkshire entity, how would you describe where people are coming and choosing to go to Devonshire?
It's pretty much all across the board. Obviously, you have the people that were born and lived and raised their children here, and they're still here. And you're right, the Berkshires being a destination, if you will, a lot of people from New York City, from Boston, who have chosen this as a destination and a nicer place to retire, they certainly are part of Devonshire. And a lot of people's children that may work, around and in the area, they desire their parents to just be closer to them. So, it's a pretty, it's a wide painted swash of people that we have.
And you definitely see that scenario where, son or daughter works at the hospital or Savic or General Dynamics. Mom or dad live in, I don't know, upstate New York somewhere, but then they choose to come to Devonshire to be closer. Now, tell me about the overall system, the holiday system, because from what I understand, there is some flexibility as to the buildings if a resident wants to go to other areas. Is that something that's
It's actually if you're referring to our travel program, Holiday owns 330 communities nationwide, and one of the perks for our residents is they can go to any community and stay up to a week for free, and of course eat and So, for instance, if they had children in Los Angeles or in Florida, they could certainly go and visit them, not feel like they're intruding on them, still be right down the street.
That's very valuable.
And yeah, of course, we all know the realities of that, and more so for the parent. They want to watch 60 Minutes when the kids want to watch something else, and they deserve to, and I'm happy we can help with that part of it. But yeah, it's a great program. When we had a couple from Florida who actually came up. They were coming to a wedding, and by the time they had gotten up here, they said the trip, other than gas, had cost them $68 because they had stayed at holiday communities all along the way for free.
Wow.
So they had their meals and their lodging.
That is pretty remarkable. And then, as far as reimbursement for what people are able to get to pay for Devonshire is now, it's not assisted living, it's independent living.
Correct.
So therefore, how do people traditionally pay for it? Is it private pay from their own savings?
It is private pay, and there are some veterans benefits out there that can help assist with that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. And I hear quite a bit about that. But do you see that often with the veterans?
Not so much
benefits?
anymore, because what I think is there's been a lot of people that have gotten mired down in the bureaucracy. It's a very long process, and it's certainly, you don't want to move into an independent living community or assisted living with the guarantee that you'll eventually have them, because there is very specific criteria for it.
So tell me about the management model as well, because you're there, you live there yourself with your wife, right?
Yep.
And that's interesting. How many places of business is where that's the case, where the community manager, the director is there, living there with his or her spouse. I don't know how common that is. I've heard quite a bit about that being the case with Devonshire, but what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we could talk about the good and the bad all day long of it, but the fact of the matter is, as a couple, you've entered into this commitment together, which strengthens your commitment not only to each other but to the residents. It just kind of enhances the whole human factor of it all. We essentially want the residents to become part of our family as we become part of theirs, and we, as a unit, Michelle and I, are a family. So, like I said, it just kind of enhances the human factor, and Ray and Kathy, our co-managers, in a similar situation. But it doesn't necessarily have to be spouses. A pair of managers could be lifelong friends. They could be a brother and sister. I haven't seen any mother-son or father-daughter combinations yet, but it's just the two people who have the commitment to serving seniors and doing the job. If it's done correctly, is quite difficult, but it's worth doing correctly.
That is fascinating, because people do travel for jobs, but then there's a whole other realm of challenges that go along with it, finding housing and all this. Whereas, it seems like your company is allowing that to be a quick decision, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
for it to be comfortable, in the case of Michelle and I, we don't have any children. We have had the ability to move around, and we're kind of looking forward to, certainly a new adventure for her. She comes from higher education, whereas at least I came from hospitality and ran assisted living. But yeah, it provides you all that. It provides you with housing and provides you with your meals and everything else. But it's as I said about doing the job well, it's you have an understanding with your spouse of how the other person is, and you know each other well, and you know where the genuine sense of caring comes from. And when you enter into it as a team and to do this, because it's all about a genuine sense of caring. And and I've heard other people speak, people with Porchlight actually, we've spoken about that inherent ability to put everyone else's needs in front of your own. That's really what's required. And once you and your spouse are both on the same page with that, it just becomes an extremely rewarding thing to do.
Yeah, and we talked about briefly about the partnership with Porchlight and why it's important to have that as an additional resource, there for those individuals to be able to stay in Devonshire State, because without a little extra support, it would have to be perhaps assisted living or maybe even a long-term care facility in some of those cases.
Sure, and and Porchlight has such a very strong presence to the fact that they even help help us pour coffee at mealtime.
That's great.
And their representatives are always available, that when we have people coming in to look at Devonshire, they're available to speak to them if the individual has those needs that they can assist with.
How important are those partnerships in the community overall, from a business standpoint, but also just from a resources standpoint, that you want the best for your residents, naturally. So, making sure that Devonshire is a part of the community.
Well, I mean, the resource almost speaks for itself in the sense that, as I mentioned earlier, it truly is home. Well, especially, the greatest generation, do we really want them moving homes when they don't necessarily need to? Where Porchlight provides the assistance for them to age in place at their home at Devonshire, it's invaluable. As far as from a business perspective, well, all the relationships in a community you can develop are always better. Especially if you're confident that you're putting your best foot forward at all times and you're doing the right thing. The more that's witnessed by people you have partnerships and people that have relationships on the outside of Devonshire, the more that word spreads. That, hey, you know what, these guys are doing the right thing. It's a good place for your mom.
And you're in Lenox. Of course, there's Tanglewood. There's all the other attractions. What is some of the selling points that you have for individuals and families when they come in, as it relates to the community? Are you going to Tanglewood all the time? Are you, during the summer? Is there transportation there? That sort of
There
thing.
is. We do trips to Tanglewood and to Jacob's Pillow and Shakespeare. And it's a huge selling point, especially when you're talking about independent living. The Berkshires are a cultural hub. So as opposed to going, even over to the Pioneer Valley or upstate New York, you really do have those great cultural resources in the Berkshires, and we certainly make sure our transportation is available to get our residents over there.
So tell me how the process begins when someone is considering it. Of course, a family, it's typically a family decision, even though, we're talking about individual lives ultimately. It's the choice of the people who are going in, sometimes spouses that may be going in together, or an individual, maybe a widower, that scenario. But, take me through the process a little bit and how that works.
We have several referral systems. A Place for Mom, one of the largest, and Senior Advisor and Seniors for Living. And essentially we get some referrals that come through us there. We get a lot of word of mouth. People drive by to see the sign, or happen to know somebody who lives or lived there in the past. So a lot of it comes through that. The most important thing is to make sure it's a comfortable fit all around. And the best part about that is, and most importantly, is to have them come in. Have them come in, get a look each other face to face. And from my side, it's very, and Kevin Bellata, our community sales leader, it's all about listening. It's all about what are the actual needs? What do we need to provide here? And at the end of the day, can we provide it? And can we provide it well? If it's not a fit, culturally, financially, from a health perspective, it won't work. And as somebody first told me when I first got into senior living, if they have to be convinced, they're not ready. And it's so true. It's a very emotional move, especially when the children are involved. And the very important thing is to convey to them that this is not something you're doing to your mom or dad. It's something you're doing for them.
Yeah.
And especially in an independent living community, whereas they may have been home alone and, watching Jeopardy every night and, eating a TV dinner, and, now they have an opportunity for socialization. And the nicest thing about an independent living community is we do have meals at certain times, and you are together for those meals. But as far as activities, you can be as much a part of them or as little a part of them as you want. If you want to, after the meals, go up and, maybe play cards with one person, or if you want to go, we do Jeopardy as well. I actually host that every Monday night.
All right.
At Devonshire. You can be involved as much or as little as you'd like to, but you have that sense of privacy, and yet you're getting that socialization. You're around other people your age. You have things in common with them. the discussions are just fantastic. I learn things every day.
I would suggest that perhaps the surprise that family members or the individuals who move into Devonshire, the surprise that they should be prepared for is to make a decision on what do I do with so much more free time, because honestly, when you're taking away all the household tasks that are there, from maintaining a lawn, to maintaining the outside of a house often. Some people, of course, pay people to do that, but, most people like to mow their own lawns and that sort of thing, make their own meals. Huge time-consuming, task for many people, especially in our culture for, the woman, in that generation. But after they move into Devonshire Estates, that's the thing. So the activities are there, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I have all this free time. What do I do with all this free time? So that's probably perhaps something that you see.
Well, we certainly. I mean, if Jerry Seinfeld has taught us nothing else, he taught us that it's about what happens between everything else.
Right.
And what that is primarily friendship. Mm-hmm. Of course, we have activities, and people can play bingo and go out to lunch and play Jeopardy and Wii bowling, and but the main activity is camaraderie. That as it's just like when people first come to Devonshire, it's very much like high school. They walk in, they see the dining room full of the seniors, and they're the freshmen, and how am I going to fit in? And every day they just warmer and warmer and warmer, and then in a matter of a few weeks, they've got their own people that they're talking to, and they've got some friends, and they're doing an activity. They're enjoying the entertainment. So it's really just about if you want the best thing for your parent is get them around other people their age, because this is really what life is all about anyway. It's about our interactions with other people, and as they get older, they just become that much more interesting. They have all these memories and histories and knowledge of past events and music and movies and politics and everything that they can share together.
And what kind of movies do you watch there at Devonshire?
Well, it's funny.
Do you have Netflix? Or?
We do have Netflix, and I'm an old movie guy. Michelle, not so much. She won't watch anything in black and white, she tells me. So a lot of it goes toward my taste. Of course, we don't want to get anything too risque. At the risk of offending anybody, obviously there's even scenes in The Godfather that could cross the line, but yeah, so it kind of runs the gamut of what would be interesting, and I used my own mother as my resource for that.
Yeah,
it's
got to pass the mom test.
Exactly, everything has to pass the mom test.
So cool. Sean O'Neill, the community manager for Devonshire Estates in Lenox. How can people get in touch with you and learn more?
The best way would be to call me at the community at 413-637-1700, or if you want to send me an email, it's Sean, SEAN.O'Neill, ONEILL, @holidaytouch.com.
Fantastic. Well, Sean, a great pleasure to have you on the program, and a great continued partnership with Porchlight VNA, which is located right there. We have a satellite office right in Devonshire Estates. So a great pleasure having you on the program.
Great.
And this has been Porchlight, a presentation of Porchlight VNA and Home Care. I'm John Krol. Thanks for watching.